Welcome to Rankings Report, where we take a look at 3 UFC contenders and the layout of their respective divisions. One underrated, one overrated, and one unranked wildcard who I believe deserves a bit more spotlight. This week we're talking lightweight, which is packed with drama right now, involving Ilia Topuria, Arman Tsarukyan, Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett, and many others. Islam Makhachev has now vacated, alhamdulillah, and is headed up to 170 to challenge Jack Della Maddalena, so you can ignore him being at the top of this list. Arman Tsarukyan is the rightful number 1 contender, but has some serious entitlement issues, campaigning non-stop for Ilia Topuria for that title bout, but hasn't fought in over a year. UFC 300 was the last time he fought. His demands are kind of falling on deaf ears with the fan base, and I think even the company doesn't want to hear it. I think they want to actually book Arman against maybe Paddy Pimblett, and not just give him a straight-up title fight. Max Holloway looked leveled up against the retiring Dustin Poirier last time out, and I'm not really sure who you give him next. There's a lot of new names for him here now that he's officially a lightweight. Any Holloway matchup here I'm happy with. If you want to book him against Hooker, Gamrot, or even Arman Tsarukyan, I'm happy with all of those. Charles Oliveira was brutally slept by Ilia Topuria last time out, and instead of taking maybe a year off to heal and, collect himself, he's already booked to fight Rafael Fiziev in October, another power puncher. So Charles Oliveira, I don't really know where his career goes from here. It seems like his durability is kind of becoming a liability. He's dropped nearly every fight, but now if he's starting to go out cold, his career might be coming to an end. Justin Gaethje is very fun, very violent, but I don't think he deserves the champion right now, which is what he's campaigning for. He says he will retire from the sport if not given a title bout. But if there's anyone that can make the argument that they deserve a title shot, I believe it is Justin Gaethje. The amount of brain cells this man sacrificed for us is unbelievable. So Justin Gaethje, I do give a pass. Dan Hooker's great. I love shilling Dan Hooker. Always a fun time out. What a character. Talks a lot of trash, and he had a good close competitive fight with Mateusz Gamrot, but ultimately beat him in the striking. Size mogged him. So if he wants to campaign for the number 1 contender spot, he has every right. Mateusz Gamrot, speaking of, just defended his spot against the unranked Ludovic Klein, so Gamrot, he's earned a shot up the ranks as well. Beneil Dariush, I predict, is probably the next name to leave the top 15 here. He's a veteran, he's crafty, he's older, but Beneil Dariush, not bringing anything new to this game. Everybody else in this top 15 is kind of evolving. I don't see any major improvements being made by Beneil Dariush, sadly. Paddy Pimblett is loved by the UFC brass. He has a big personality and a big fan base, so he kind of just gets what he wants. He has a nice little winning streak here going, with a few layups in there, I'll be honest, but Paddy Pimblett's doing everything asked of him, and he will probably be given a big step up in his next fight. Don't be surprised if he gets given an Arman Tsarukyan. Rafael Fiziev has the Charles Oliveira fight booked, wishing him the best. He's very fun, Muay Thai striker. And we have Renato Moicano and Michael Chandler slipping in their last ones. Moicano losing the unanimous decision to Beneil Dariush, slipping a few spots, and Michael Chandler receiving a brutal beating from Paddy Pimblett, which a lot of people weren't predicting. But Paddy Pimblett, showing evolution, getting it done, and being the one to properly beat Michael Chandler's ass and send him down the division. Benoit St. Denis last time out beat, I believe, a debutant, Kyle Prepolek, guy off the Canadian regional scene, so now he's barely clinging on to the top 15, so we need to see a nice, good performance for him before we really take him serious in this top 15, top 10 discussion. Grant Dawson must have been on suicide watch after being KO'd by Bobby Green a couple years ago, but Grant Dawson, just a bit too much of a wrestling purist. The grappling skill is pretty elite, but I don't think he's well-rounded enough to really climb this division, seeing as it's such a shark tank near the top. Yoel Alvarez, on the other hand, I do have high hopes for. He is a massive weight bully. One of the only other Spaniards in the UFC. Brutal striking, big physical guy, has grappling ability, and his only really problematic matchup was Arman Tsarukyan, who is now your number 1 contender. So Yoel Alvarez has a long ways to go, but I do trust that he's going to grow into a nice little contender here if he can make the weight. He is a gigantic lightweight. So first up, the underrated pick of the week is Paddy Pimblett in this lightweight division. Now I know what you're going to say. There's probably some other names on here that are maybe a better choice for underrated, like Mateusz Gamrot, but Paddy Pimblett, man, From how people used to talk about him, how the fan base used to perceive Paddy Pimblett, he has grown exponentially, and I know he only fights once a year, but in that time, he's gone from complete goofball to serious contender. Paddy Pimblett has been overlooked for a large portion of his UFC career, sort of coming in as that Cage Warriors goofball, and I don't think he was really given a fair shake by the MMA fan base and other UFC fighters. All we had to go off of was his rocky UFC debut where kind of got his head pinged around a bit by Luigi Vendramini, and since that moment, he's sort of been overlooked as sort of a grappling-only bum. And so coming from Cage Warriors, he already had a pretty decently sized fan base, but then paired with his antics under the bright lights, this just kind of blew up, and he sort of developed a bit of stardom. And if there's one thing we know, it's if you have sort of this celebrity aura to you in the fight game, the UFC will pick you up and sort of grant you this golden boy privilege, this Dana White privilege, which sort of entails maybe easier matchups or like an easier rise, like they're looking out for you, the matchmakers. There are obviously varying degrees of this, and you may not even subscribe to it at all, but I believe there is a level of golden boy privilege with Paddy Pimblett. But that's not to say he hasn't earned it. Like, that's kind of what we want, right? We want fighters to be entertaining to some degree or have somewhat of a personality, right? It can't only just be your fighting abilities these days. You need to have some sort of character that you bring. And Paddy Pimblett cranks this up to an 11. He has an incredible walkout. He loves to talk trash. So this is a positive trait I'm going to give Paddy Pimblett, and I do believe this makes him underrated. Also paired with that is Pimblett's mental warfare. You may chuck it away as basic trash talk, but we've seen time and time again that trash talk is an element of a fight. Psychological aspects do come into play, and Pimblett could just be being himself, being a goofball, chucking insults, and defending himself verbally. But I like this for Pimblett. It's hard to pull off for some fighters because it does create a large amount of pressure on your fight, but if you can handle that pressure and your opponent can't, then it's absolutely a good idea to introduce some extra pressure, some mental warfare, get them to doubt themselves in the fight. I love that Pimblett tests that out. I don't know if I can point to an example where it's worked a ton, but that doesn't mean it won't work in the future. Pimblett press conferences are wild, bombastic, and yeah, so that paired with his sort of celebrity aura, I think gives him an advantage in his fights against the right type of opponent. And lastly, Pimblett's improved defense. It wasn't that long ago, I believe it was UFC 282, that he was getting touched up by Jared Gordon a bit, and it was pretty concerning to watch, but since that moment, I like his footwork, his head movement. Against Bobby Green, Michael Chandler, he didn't really get hit a ton, which I like. I think the more dangerous matchups for Pimblett on the feet, like where he could be chinned out cold, we're looking at names now like Gaethje, Arman Tsarukyan, Topuria, where he is going to need improved defense because they all have decent boxing and they'll be coming for his chin. But I think Pimblett, with his sound ground game, can put the majority of his training and focus on protecting his chin, being defensively responsible. And I think as time goes on, you're going to see more and more of that, is Pimblett minding his P's and Q's on the feet, not stepping into the pocket with his chin up, maybe developing a bit of a better shell. I'm noticing an improved defense in Pimblett moving forward, so I think that makes him underrated. Let's talk about Arman Tsarukyan as the overrated pick of the week in the lightweight division. Let's get one thing clear, fight style of Arman Tsarukyan, not many things to pick holes at here. Dominant, power-based wrestler who prioritizes control over submission most of the time. Strong basic boxing from Arman and just supreme physicality, flexibility, supreme athlete. If you're predicting Arman Tsarukyan to end up as champion at some point, I would not fault you for it. Master of sport in MMA, master of sport in, I believe, wrestling as well. So this guy undoubtedly has the goods here to possibly beat Ilia Topuria or any other ranked lightweight. We've seen some slip-ups from him, but my main critique is going to actually be his outside-the-cage antics and his personality. Now, while Arman Tsarukyan is incredibly high level, this man is completely self-centered, does not care about the overall MMA fan base, dull as hell at press conferences, on the mic, just monotone. Arman's put together some fun fights in the past, but now that he's at the top of the division and closer than ever to his main goal, expect boring wins. This man was in the corner for that Khamzat Chimaev performance, so you can only imagine the next type of performance Arman's going to give you is probably just laying praying Ilia Topuria, let's be honest. And Arman's entitlement issues with this whole title, running propaganda, skits with Nina Drama, just I'm over it, and I think the company's over it as well, trying to talk his way into this Ilia Topuria title fight. What we need to see from Arman is him just in the cage fighting, and it doesn't seem like he's going to get a title fight, so I would campaign for Gaethje, Hooker, or Pimblett, honestly. Just get yourself a fight signed so we can get back to talking about your skill set in the cage, because I can't have Arman Tsarukyan making skits anymore. This man's personality is not for me. To quote a gem of a quote from Michael Bisping, this man couldn't sell water to a thirsty man in a desert. And lastly, fragile and emotional. Let's talk about Arman Tsarukyan's run-in with Bobby Green where he slapped him in the face, and also his incident where he punched a fan, allegedly, on his walkout at UFC 300. Yeah, just rubbing me the wrong way, Arman Tsarukyan seems very emotional, entitled rich kid vibes. I don't jive with it. So my message to Arman Tsarukyan is get back in the cage and earn your title shot. And my message to his fan base is Ilia Topuria, round 1 KO. And last but not least, one of my favorite lightweights of all time. New guy on the block, NAZIM Sadykhov. You may know of him or you may not, but every time this guy steps into the cage, no matter who he's against, no matter what style, it's always a good time. NAZIM Sadykhov is a guy that will have a fun fight with anybody. He has the skills to avoid the ground or even pursue it if he has to, but most of the time, this guy's a hybrid striker, throwing tons of volume, tons of flashy shit. I highly recommend you just hop on Fight Pass and dig through this man's career because nothing disappoints. After a dynamite KO on Dana White's Contender Series, NAZIM Sadykhov has stacked up 4 impressive and fun UFC wins, and coming off just an insane comeback victory, comeback brawl over Nicholas Mota in Azerbaijan. Really hoping they give my boy NAZIM a ranked fight next time out. Give him a step up. This man is just must-see television. Let's get into it. NAZIM Sadykhov is a switch stance kickboxer with a very intelligent, high and tight boxing guard, walks into the brawls, loves to use forward pressure, comes from the Serra-Longo gym, same team as Merab, often has Merab in his corner, lights people up with volume. He himself gets cracked back at times, but great durability. He has skills to fall back on. But is he too fun to become champ? This is something I've been going over. He's had close fights with Terrence McKinney, Vyacheslav Borshev, kind of low-ranking lightweights he's had some really close moments against. So I'm running into this question, is he just one of these guys that is going to be shown his level real soon? The harsh truth that he's just too fun of a style to lock in, beat the elite, and actually rise up to the top 10, top 5. Is he too fun to become champ? Honestly has sort of a similar style to Jan with the high and tight guard and kind of dropping the first round. This is kind of what Sadykhov does. I would like him to just be a bit more active, get out there, and really test himself against these tougher names just to see where he stacks up against them, because so far so good. He's entertaining everybody. I believe he has a couple performance bonuses in there. I'm yet to be disappointed by this guy. He's had some close calls, like getting out-volumed by Evan Elder. Believe he was taken down and nearly subbed by Terrence McKinney. McKinney had his back for a while, but he turned it around and subbed him. And a crazy scrap with Borshev. Not the greatest look if we're talking skills and kind of showing your level, your elite level, but incredible fights. Awesome, must-watch TV. This is the type of fighter that should never be in the Apex and should always be at the top of the prelims or bottom of the main card. So that's my wild card of the week, NAZIM Sadykhov. Go on Fight Pass, check this guy out. You will not be disappointed. Who will it be next week? What division do you guys want to take a look at, and do you agree with this week's choices? As always, thank you guys for watching. Bit of a new series here. I'd love to get your guys' feedback on it. We now have fighter analysis, no filter, event breakdowns, recaps, and I feel like Rankings Report will complement the channel quite nicely. So, I'll see you guys next time, and let's talk in the comments down below.